Sydney here, and welcome to the Drunken Ork. What I want to show you today is just basically a showcase of a model I've done recently. I didn't intend on doing a, build along how-to sort of vid, because I didn't think it was going to be, that difficult to suss out. It was pretty straightforward. But I've decided to put together some of the progress shots just to show you, in case you wanted to do something similar. Now I'm putting together a speed mob. I was originally putting together a Freebooterz army list based around a sort of speed war vibe, with some buggies and bikes, and I know it's a bit meta, but they do look mint, and I'm going to do it anyway. Then the speed mob rules came out in the Octarius sector, I think part 2 on it, and they look quite good. So I thought, right, well, in for a penny, I can do a bit of both. Concentrate on bikes and copters and what have you. I've done a few buggies. I'm going to show those in another video, but I needed something to lead them, and hence this model, Deffkilla Wartrike. I've had one for quite a while now, still in the box. I like it as a model, it looks absolutely mint, but it's not very freebootery. Not that many of my other models are either, mine, but I thought for the figurehead it had to be a bit more freebootery. So first of all, just for personal preference, I thought these things on the front, these flaming skull things, not a massive fan of them. They had to go. Secondly, as there's not much more else you can do with the trike itself, I thought there's the boss, he needs freebootering up. Now I know it's an old bit of a cliche here that freebooter orcs are pirates, but I like the pirate aesthetic because pirates are cool. If they were ninjas, I'd do them as ninjas. They're also cool. Ninja pirates, by the way, are probably the coolest thing you can get. So there he is, the boss. He's alright, but like I say, he's not very freebootery. Unlike this fella from the Ork, not Ogre, got it right, Ork Kingdoms, he's a man-eater pirate, and he's very freebootery. So I thought, I'll get myself one of these. I thought it was plastic when I ordered it. Thankfully, it was resin. I say thankfully, because it could have been metal, and there was a few minutes where I thought, oh god, if I ordered a metal model, I'll have to cut up metal. Oh, who can be bothered? But I wanted him because I wanted his anchor. That's freebootery, isn't it? It's an anchor. Now, the boss on the bike's got a snagger claw, which he uses to hit people in combat and also grab people at short range on length of chain. You can do that with an anchor. So I thought, right, I'm going to give him an anchor as a weapon. Also, he's got a parrot. It's actually a nobbler and a feathery dressing gown with a hood and a fake beak. And the weird thing that I thought was some sort of wattle or something is his arms folded, because he's obviously not happy with it. So I thought, great, that's got Snotling in a parrot costume written all over it. Naturally, he needed a pirate hat. I did make a couple out of green stuff, but they turned out a bit rubbish. That's what started us looking for a suitable model to cannibalise. He's also got a belly shield with a couple of flintlock pistols, which I thought looked decent. When I got the model and looked at them, they weren't that decent. They just looked like tubes with bulbs on the end, and I decided not to bother with them. So first of all, you take the boss knob, and where the dotted lines show, you remove the snagger claw. Although truth be told, it's easier just don't stick it on in the first place. Saves you a bit of work. Next, his left arm, not a fan of it. It had to be pointed out to us that he was leaning on the railing, but even so, I just didn't like the look of it. It was a non-event, that arm, so I decided to change it. Again, helpful dotted lines showing where I cut it once it was put on the model. Cut it at the shoulder, so the arm was rotated into a more of an upright position, with the fist sweeping up and forward, and then the fist itself was cut and rotated about 90 degrees. The hardest thing to do, and I mean this in an emotional sense, was to cut away his brass knuckles. Because everyone loves brass knuckles. But I had to remove them because I had something else in plan for his left arm. I decided to do this video when I was at about this stage. So this was the first photo I took. As you can see, I've missed a few steps out, haven't I? At this point, he's got the anchor in his hand. That is pinned through the fist and then at the top and bottom of the anchor. And then obviously glued in place with super glue. The snagger claw chain, which attaches to the little pulley on the back, is still running up the base of the chain, and I just put a different little section of chain just to sort of hide the bond. It is a different style of chain, but once it's painted up, that isn't that obvious. The head actually came from, I believe it was Hardcore Minis, and I just sliced the top of his bonds off, cut the pirate hat away from the Ork Kingdom's pirate, and stuck it on his head, and then added a green stuff beard. Now the beard length there is actually a bit longer than it ended up. I did trim it back a bit because the rider of the trike head got in the way, and that beard is not as soft and malleable as a real beard. I had a little bit left, so I made a tiny little eye patch for him as well. The tankard is an artillery shell from a Bane Blade kit. I cut the top off, drilled it out, cut out a small glyph, skull and crossbones, Jolly Ork obviously, from plastic card and glued it on the front. In the first pic you can see there it sort of sticks out a bit at the sides, but to be totally honest, I held a lighter over it and it just flopped round into shape, which was great. See, the handle was just a couple of bits of plastic rod, again, get the lighter out, bent them in half, stuck them on, and I added some foam to it just with some, it was just a washing up sponge. Tiny little bit, ripped it up a bit, made it a bit tatty, stuck it in, and with super glue it kind of dissolved, fizzed down and formed that sort of shape. It was a bit bigger when I stuck it on. It'll shrink, use more than you need, it will shrink down. The beard is just applied onto the face, roll out some little tashes, and then once you've got the rough shape of the beard, go at it with a very fine pair of tweezers and just nip it. Nip and pull, nip and pull, nip and pull. Start at the bottom, work your way up. Each subsequent bit you nip and pull lies over the bottom bits and gives that sort of layered effect. But just keep going at it until you've got it right. You've got a few hours to work with it. It's probably best to leave green stuff for the first 30-40 minutes or so after you mix it up, because it is a little bit too sticky at that point. There you can just see the arm, the way it was moved, rotated up and the wrist twisted out. And a little bit of green stuff just to cover up the gap where the snagger claw was meant to go. There you go, Kaptain Squigbeard. I added a shoulder plate just to give a smoother base for the parrot to sit on. Once the parrot was cut away from the ogre body, it was just a case of putting a little pin to join the two together and slotting them into place. Like I say, at this point, it is just a test fit, he's not actually glued in. I wanted to paint the parrot separately. Primed him up with high coat matte black. Looks a bit shiny there, but I think that's just the lighting. And there he is with the face, beard and pants done. Well, a few other things as well. I wanted stripy pants because pirates got to have stripy pants. Paint them white, shade them, get your lines painted on in dark blue, and then just paint the centre of those lines with a lighter blue. And then if you want to add a little bit very light blue as highlights, you can do. That's what I've done there. The beard was done first though, because it was just painted red and then dry brushed up through some oranges just to get the highlights on it. Bit messy, so do it first so you can always paint over any mistakes. I wanted a gradual colour shift from yellow to red on the feather, which is pretty easy to do with just paint the feather yellow, and then I used Reichland Flesh tone. Or is it Reichland Flesh shade? Something like that. It's a ready wash, and you can just thin it a tiny bit and then just gradually add it further and further up. And once it was all on, you just give it a bit of I just give it a light dry brush with a light orange. Foam was painted just like you do bone really, wraith bone or something similar, and then like a skeleton horde or something similar. Nice leather straps on his back, and I painted the glyph on the back of his jacket in the blue that I use across all my sort of freebootery and goth stuff, just as to tie them all together as like a feature colour. And there he is on his trike. There was no rider there at the minute, and the trike, basically the way I do most vehicles, prime and black, spray or dry brush silver depending on the size of the model, add Guilliman flesh, dry brush with a chocolatey brown like Morn Fang for wet rust, and a nice bright orange like Riser for dry rust, and then go over and just pick out the odd highlight of bare metal where the rust would not have reached or worn away. And then just painted some panels black, some red, some that bright blue, and obviously some checks. The bases, again, as I do most of my bases, recent video on that. But in this one I cut some sections of the base material away whilst it was drying, and then in that you just paint a darker colour, either a very dark brown or even black, and then put some gloss varnish on top, and it represents puddles. And because at this point it wasn't looking very freebootery at all, apart from obviously the knob, I thought I'd give him a big banner, a big flag. I originally wanted to do a mast, but the mast with it going straight up with the crossbeam on top would have been impacting too much on the fuel mixer grot or even the knob if it was going to be billowing out. So I thought instead I'd do a big flag, a big banner. And there it is. Now, unfortunately, I wasn't clever enough to take any pictures of this as I was making it, but that is a sheet of 1/2 mil plastic card. Cut it into a square and got my lighter out and basically just heated it so it warped and sagged in places and got that sort of fluttering effect. Then drilled a couple of holes in it, because every flag's got bullet holes in, and tatted up the edges a little bit. Then a bit of plastic rod, slightly bent, no lighter, for the flagpole, and a couple of bits of plastic tube which the rod slid perfectly into. Cut off a couple of rings and mounted those. Snipped a little bit away so the plastic card slid into the rings, just add a little extra bit of solidity, and then obviously glued it on. And then the obligatory Space Marine helmet on top. I'll paint it. Once it was prime black, it was just a case of painting a bit at a time. I think I painted the beard first, just a red spiky mess, and then highlighted the spikes on the outside with an orange, and obviously painted some more spikes, starting on the outside, working my way in with that orange, and then used a lighter orange, and eventually I think there was a yellow used just to highlight the points. Then I painted the bottom lip and the top lip, painted those green, the base green I wanted, and then highlighted them up with my usual Ork skin recipe, which is the Warboss green, Scarsnake green, and a tiny bit of Krieg camo on top. Done that, done the nose, done the cheekbone, done all the bits step by step, and done the eye patch, the eyes, the tusks, and then the hat. And the checks on the side, I used little squares of masking tape as checks, and then just stippled the white just to get some detail on the edges. Now, because the other side of the flag was blank, I thought I'd do a more traditional Jolly Ork, and that was just paint it in white and then go over it with a little bit of known oil, just add some shading on it. Very straightforward. And if you make a mistake, and I made mistakes, you just go over it. Especially with the skull, you paint it on, and then if you don't like the shape of it, if you think, well, I'll tell you what, I want a few little dots, a few little scuff marks on it, get your black out, pop them on. I just want to tidy this bit in, tidy it up. If your teeth end up slightly rounded, sharpen them off again with the black afterwards. If you end up thinking, I hate this, paint over it. Paint over the whole thing. You can just keep trying as much as you want so you get it exactly how you want. Do you know what I mean? So just go for it, man. There's a little close-up of the parrot on the York shoulder, and a few mix I got as well. And there's with the rider on as well. And the rider, I just cut the top of his head off. I think he had a helmet on there, and replaced it with a little blob of green stuff, which I sort of teased into a bandana looking thing. It's pretty basic, but he's got a little knot and a couple of bits hanging down the back there as well. Again, just to make him that little bit more freebootery. So yeah, Kaptain Squigbeard on Deffkilla Wartrike. And yeah, he's going to be leading me Speed Mob. I'm trying to do another video very soon, showing you some of the other things I've done for the Speed Mob, which at the minute is a couple of Megatrax grab jets, a couple of Rocket Truck Squig buggies, some Deffkoppers. I've got some bikes on the go, but I'm kind of halting that at the minute just to focus on the 40k Ork Community February challenge, which is a terrain challenge. So I've not made terrain before. Well, I suppose I put the kill team stuff together and that, but I've not scratch built any terrain before, so that's what I'm doing this time. Trying out a little bit of sculpting and stuff. There'll be a video about that as well, probably around March, maybe. So anyway, yeah, I'm going to leave with a bit of a collage of the finished model, and I hope you like it, and if you enjoyed the video, if you have, don't forget to hit like and subscribe, and until next time, take care.